Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. How are you doing?
Good morning.
You good? Hi, yo.
Good morning,
Adefemi.
Femi.
That's me.
Okomambe.
Customary, isn't it?
Yes.
It is. All righty, let me tell you about what is happening around the world. And 26-year-old Luigi Mangione has been charged with murder over last week's fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York City. Mangione was taken into custody at a McDonald's in the town of Altoona in Pennsylvania, about 450 kilometers west of New York City on Monday, after a customer recognized him. Now, Mangione is an Ivy League graduate from a prominent Maryland family. He was found in possession of a 3D printed gun and a handwritten document that indicated motivation and mindset. Mr. Mangione then appeared in a Pennsylvania court to be arraigned on 5 initial counts and was denied bail. He's now expected to be presented with the option of waiving his extradition to the state of New York or contesting it. If he does choose to waive it, he'll be immediately made available to New York authorities. But if he does choose to contest that extradition, that process could take between 30 and 45 days. Moving on to the Middle East now, and Israeli forces have carried out large-scale attacks across Syria, targeting 3 major airports and other strategic military infrastructure, including in the capital, Damascus. Meanwhile, toppled Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's prime minister says he has agreed to hand power to the opposition-led Salvation government, headed by Mohammed al-Bashir. The HTS is promising to pursue former top military figures implicated in war crimes as Syrians continue to search for missing loved ones in the Sednaya prison. The US issued arrest warrants for 2 former senior Syrian intelligence officers after charging them with war crimes against civilians, including American citizens. In northeast Syria, the Turkey-backed Syrian National Army is pressing on with an offensive to seize territory from the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, who are supported by the United States. Now, Syrians are also roaming through Assad's abandoned presidential palaces in Damascus. If you can see those videos there, it marks the true downfall of the Assad dynasty. I don't know if you all saw those videos, but I mean, we've seen plenty of presidential palaces, but that was something special, especially when you go into the basement, you saw the fleet of vehicles that the Assads had left behind. So they had been able to amass great wealth during their time at the helm of Syrians, and it'll be interesting to see what this will look like for the people of Syria going forward. They're now in there taking pictures, but
Femi, haven't we seen this in history?
We have.
It was the same in history that we saw Benito Mussolini.
Is that in Italy?
Being hung out there. There were pictures out there after the war. I mean, we've also seen in history presidential palaces of Bangladesh, now of Syria, Saddam Hussein, and everything, and all the wealth they amass at the expense of the people, while the people are being locked in prison cell and dungeon. But the question with Syria is what will happen. Would Jonali be able to push for quick elections? He said he's going to be moderate, he's not going to be Islamist, but a lot of people are asking questions. With all these factions come together, America has been carrying out strikes. They are saying they don't want Al-Qaeda to consolidate. Israel too has also been carrying out strikes around the Golan Heights area. In fact, yesterday they carried out some strikes up to Damascus. They say they want to destroy the chemical arsenal. Because if you remember the case of Syria and amassing a lot of chemical weapons over the years, that they don't want that to fall into the hands of non-state actors. You can also see what Turkey is doing out there to be able to consolidate positions. Would all of these be able to move to elections? And who are those that are going to have the elections?
Exactly.
Most of the core Syrian opposition, political oppositions, have been made to go on exile all this while because of Bashar al-Assad. His party will normally win high numbers in the elections. So how are they quickly going to reconvene to make the nation work and push to elections so they can have an admirable government across board in every part of the nation? The case is still very fluid and unfair for Syria. As regards Mangione, I mean, it's a triumph for the American system. In less than a week, you saw CCTV cameras and everything. We live in a country where the Attorney General of this country was killed. Till today, we have not solved the murder of Chief Bola Ige, popularly known as Uncle Bola Ige, till today in this country. And those that perpetrated the crime, they're still at large, still walk free, still triumph. But you can see how this happens. You can see how he was tracked up to a McDonald's in Pennsylvania, and all the shots were taken. He's been taken in. He has a right to be able to follow up his case. Let's see how the case pans out. But you can see the triumph for the system. Let's do better.
So when his picture came out, at least the suspect, this picture of a suspect, we had said that very shortly,
yes,
this case, he would be apprehended and this case would begin to, they would see an end to the case in terms of who is responsible, who was responsible for the killing of Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare Managing Director. A few things about him. I've tried to, really study the information obtained so far about him, and just, again, no motive has been established.
No.
It's difficult to establish a motive in this kind of case because there are a number of reasons. But in a very interesting way, there were a number of things found on him. By the way, he was eating at a McDonald's restaurant. I think you mentioned that. And was one of the staff members who identified him as someone who looked like the person the police had declared as being wanted. Again, that even raises a question for me that that picture was very clear, such that his family members and friends ought to have recognized him. I mean, if a stranger could recognize him, he was wearing a mask when he ordered, but of course she had to remove the mask to be able to eat. And it was at that point that the police were called in and they identified him. Found on him was a 3-page document. And they're still trying to analyze the details of the document. But in that document, he states his anger with corporate America, and even mentions things around the fact that, these parasites had to be taken down. He felt sorry about the strife and the heartache it would cause. And of course, it caused a lot of heartache. Brian Thompson left behind a widow and 2 sons. But it's what's behind it. And in fact, what experts are saying are, this perhaps was just the first of many others, because he used the plural term in describing the people who had to pay for what had happened. If you look at his background, very normal background, he's not been convicted. So that's actually very worrying. Valedictorian of his class in secondary school, went to an Ivy League University of Pennsylvania, comes from a very good, at least respectable family. So you're wondering what could have, motivated him. I'm sensing some mental health issues here.
Perhaps.
But they're saying that in court, he pleaded as not having any known mental health issue that should be revealed to the courts. But the case, is ongoing, but it would be great to really analyze this and see why to prevent future occurrences.
Thank you, Ayo.
Okay, let me start with a commentary on Israel.
Okay.
Yesterday, I had said Israel was trying to be proactive to prevent chemical weapons.
Yes.
And all the military depots that Syria has in abundance put together by Al-Assad before his fall. Just to make sure also that they protect the Golan Heights, which they seized in 1967, and which Israel annexed in 1981, and which the United States unilaterally recognized as Israeli territory against international conventions in 1989. So 2 things that Israel is trying to do is trying to prevent access by the rebels who have now taken over to chemical sites, weapon sites, and they've extended, the aggression beyond the area, the corridor, the demilitarized zone, into Syria itself.
Right.
So Israel is engaged in a war of self-preservation. Your enemy falls, you quickly take advantage. The long-term objective is for Israel to gain more power within the region. But there's a lot of uncertainty. We do not know what will follow. In Syria, with Al-Jolawi, being the face and presenting himself, I said yesterday that there are other forces involved. The Southern Operations Room, the US-backed Kurdish Syrian Democratic Forces, and also which is in charge of the Northeast, and then the forces in Northwest, and then the ATS led by Al-Jolawi, which is in charge of the province of Idlib. So this uncertainty has generated reactions from the international community. Israel is quickly engaging in a game of self-preservation. England, or rather Britain, and other countries in Europe have now suspended asylum applications processing for anybody from the Syrian region. And David Lammy was just saying in the papers today that, look, there is a threat to Great Britain, because if jihadis, coming from Syria are allowed to come in, this could have implications for security. As for Mangione, yes, he struck last week, killed the United Healthcare boss. Now, a week later, they have found him. He was identified by a customer at a McDonald's restaurant in Altoona, I think California. Pennsylvania, yes. And then that customer informed one of the workers there who tipped off the police. Yes. He has now been charged for illegal possession of firearm, illegal possession of silencer, for lying about his identity as he did originally, and he has been retained in detention without bail bond, without bond. Well, the issue is, when you look at his background, you'll be worried. Mm. This is a boy who went to a private school.
Yes.
This is a boy who is from one of the richest families in the state of Maryland. Yes. This is a boy who has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania in computer science, I understand. And then what could have driven him to this desperation? What we know at the moment is that he's been suffering from back pain. And the 3-page manifesto that was found with him indicated that he has concerns about, the healthcare industry in America. I judge to be, a memo that is against the interest of the United States. But he will have his day in court. His family has apologized to the family of the deceased. They've expressed surprise. But it looks like he's a loner. People have been looking for him.
For quite a while, right? His friends hadn't heard from him. He went and
ensconced himself in Honolulu. Why? Are there lessons that we can learn from the sweetness of the investigation in other parts of the world, especially in Nigeria, where crimes are committed, and for years, there will be no trace, there will be no resolution.
Well, thank you very much for all of your thoughts. Let's move on now to newspaper headlines across the globe. And we begin here in Nigeria with This Day. This Day stays with the implication of John Mahama's victory in Ghana. Nigeria's PDP says the opposition win in Ghana signals the end of the APC's rule in 2027. As you've already discussed at the beginning of this program, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has voiced out against Akume for asking the North to wait until 2031 before seeking power again. The Daily Sun and the Daily Independent continue with Atiku's comments. The Daily Independent especially shows him saying that it's injustice for the North to be precluded from running. This day's article, as my colleagues have already done, does a good job of highlighting the ways Atiku's calculations for the 17 years versus 11 years are inaccurate. Moving on to this week's edition of The Advocate by Onike Paul Braithwaite, she talks about how the intersection of activism and defamation is interesting, especially looking at Dele Famorotti's case. And she talks about how the pursuit of the former does not justify the presence of the latter. Very, very interesting article. The New Telegraph this morning reports that the reorganization in the army is likely as the NASS confirms Olufemi Oluyede as the 24th Chief of Army Staff. Now, most likely to be affected by any shuffles are some PSOs, some Corps Commanders and GOCs. The Guardian now, and the National Bureau of Statistics says that there are 1.1 million people displaced, and of that number, 77% of internally displaced people in Nigeria would like to return to their homes. And The Punch features a story on its top left-hand corner which says Nigeria has ranked 4th amongst countries whose citizens were granted US citizenship through military naturalization between 2020 and 2024. During the period under review, the United States naturalized over 52,000 military service members across different countries. According to that data obtained by the US Citizenship and Immigration Services, 3,270 Nigerian-born service members were granted US citizenship, trailing behind only the Philippines, Jamaica, and Mexico. Moving on to some African papers now, and Ghana's Daily Graphic has confirmed President-elect John Mahama has delivered his victory speech, where he says that Ghana's best days are ahead. And in Kenya, the Daily Nation has President William Ruto paying his predecessor, Uhuru Kenyatta, a visit with the accompanying article highlighting the fluidity of Kenyan politics and how their meeting could signal a thawing of their frosty relationship. And finally, in the United Kingdom, if we take a look at the front page of the Metro, it has the trial of 18-year-old Hassan Sentamu, who's accused of murdering 15-year-old Eliane Andam on her way to school earlier this year. A court has heard how she was allegedly chased and stabbed by the defendant as she stood up for her friend in a dispute over a teddy bear. Those are the stories on our newspapers all around the world.
So I think pretty much the first story on this day speaks volumes, and I think we had talked about it extensively.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add this little note to what we have said. See, for politicians to start to talk about regions and entitlement is the greatest form of manipulation. They never talk about solutions. And please don't be deceived. The political class is one, irrespective of any region. When somebody from a certain region gets in there, they all eat together at the expense of the poor, suffering people. It is people like us that will have unemployment of over 40% while they continue to enjoy. Have you ever seen any of them fight each other so much and deny each other's interests? When you look at the matters critically, they go for each other's children's wedding ceremony.
There is that.
They are chummy with each other. It's about their own interest and deal. When it's time for them to make a deal, that's why you see that political party, you were saying the other day, Dr. Bati, has got no ideologies. They will flip quickly in Nigeria. Because the political class is one. The day you begin to know that it's them against us, that's when Nigeria will be able to stand up and fight for ourselves and vote for leaders that truly represent the Nigerian people, not this same ruinous political class.
Right, let me talk about the Punch's headline about the number of Nigerians who were naturalized by joining the military. I mean, aside, we've talked about the fact that we have a jackpot problem. Yesterday, when we were having the conversation on COVID-19, healthcare workers, we also raised the alarm that a number of nurses, healthcare practitioners have moved abroad. But let me make a case. Why would a man or a woman choose to go and serve in another country's military, knowing that part of what you swear is allegiance to that country, meaning that if the country in any event fights against your country of birth, you will stand with that country? And I had the opportunity to speak to a friend of mine who is in the military in the US, Nigerian born, but serves in the military. And the kind of welfare package that they have, beyond just wanting the passport, the American passport, is the difference in the way that a military personnel in the United States is treated compared to how we treat our own military personnel. We see how it happens, how the dignity and the respect that military
officers...
Even
your boarding planes, they're able to board first.
They have priority boarding, not just for themselves, but their family members as well. Also, when they are away fighting or, when they are away serving the country, they ensure that their family members, wives, children, immediate family members are well looked after. So there's a sense of pride going out to fight for your country. Beyond that, we don't hear cases about allowances not paid, somebody coming to steal substandard equipment use, putting the lives of the military personnel at stake. So how many Nigerians who have the opportunity to take the offer won't take it? It's time for us, and I hope it ties into the story of the new chief of army staff. We need to rejig the welfare of our military officers. We need to restore dignity to to servicemen in Nigeria. They pay the ultimate price many times, yet we don't give them the respect that they do deserve. And I'm hoping that this will make a case for them. Let's look into it. How much are they being paid? Is it healthcare, education? When you serve about 3 or 4 years, you can get a master's or a degree funded by the government. So many things that we need to rethink how we treat our own people and not just say people are jackbuying. Why are they jackbuying?
Agreed.
Okay, for the local stories that you reviewed, the one that interests me most is your reference to Onikepo Braithwaite's article in the lawyer section of this day newspaper this morning. And it seems to me, I've read quite a number of commentaries on the COP versus Dele Farotimi case. And this piece seems to me to be about the most brilliant that I have read, in which Onikepo Braithwaite, in the Advocate program, column, deals with all the basic issues that people have been raising. And she asks the question, when activism is no license to defame? And we have made the point here. Your right as an individual on that section 39 to express yourself stops where my own right begins. That's at the foundation of it. She also, in that piece, addresses issues about jurisdiction. Now, mechanics and bricklayers have been commenting on jurisdiction, but she tried to put it as it is. She talked about bail, which is at the discretion of the court. And she made the more important point in her concluding part that activism is about justice. And the courts are there to dispense justice for the plaintiff, for the defendant, and also for the system. And these are basic principles that she has laid out, including, whether criminal defamation or civil defamation or the rule in Smith versus Selwyn, which, the ordinary man who has not had any encounter with any subject called law may not understand. So activism is about justice. What is important is that justice should be done. I think for public education, I advise people to try and read Onekeko Braithwaite's piece today in the Lawyer to see that this is not about emotion. This is not about what I think in the court of, public opinion, but about, more salient points of law.
Indeed.
But at the end of the day, justice should be done to all parties concerned.
Agreed.
Well, thank you very much, Adefemi, looking like Miss Nigeria.
Miss Nigeria in the green, right?
Well, congratulations to now declared winner of the Ghanaian presidential election, John Mahama. He gave his speech yesterday. I know our eyes covered it live.
Yes.
And it was covered extensively yesterday. Thank you. See you again tomorrow morning.
Always a pleasure. See you tomorrow.